My name is Cizuka and this is Izakaya Seki. Sure, so my name is Cizuka Seki. I own izakaya SEKI. I own it with my father actually. He's downstairs. He's a chef and he's in the kitchen. I'm his sometimes sous chef and sometimes just everything else needed. We opened in 2012, so it's almost 10 years. And we're just like a little neighborhood place in DC. He's been a chef for like almost 60 years. So he was trained in Japan and came here and he's always done Japanese washoku cuisine. So I've always been surrounded by food and lived in restaurants when I was very little when they had and things like that. So it wasn't. This used to be a barber shop. I think the upstairs actually was residential. It was a gut job completely. Everything about it is new, even though it looks old and tired right now. But I didn't have a full architect do everything. I basically designed the space with my friend Jonah Takagi. He's an industrial designer and was in DC for a while. And he's just sort of a Renaissance man where he was like did production for X-Hex's record and was in bands, but also like working on building furniture. So he helped me sort of think through all the different components and how to source them and things like that. But really, it's just sort of my taste. Yeah. I've known Victoria and some of the board members of Transformer for, I don't know, since like the late 90s, early aughts. All of us at some point, like Victoria and myself and other people we know, were all sort of involved in like various aspects of the DC punk scene or music scene. And so that's how I met. And then, I mean, back then especially, I don't know about now, but a lot of students from the Corcoran were also in bands and playing music, so there was a huge overlap between local artists, either still in school or just having graduated, and all these other people here for work, but also playing music and hanging out at the same clubs and things, so we all just sort of organically met. Then some time passed and I opened up the restaurant, and it just so coincided with Fukushima happening and tsunami and everything, and Victoria had been communicating with this group of artists in Japan to come over and do an exhibit here. And she needed a translator. Basically, none of them spoke any Japanese, any English, and she didn't speak any Japanese. So I offered to help, and I wound up spending almost my entire time that they were here with them, just getting to know them, helping them out, facilitating the exhibit, things like that. And then in return, I became really good friends with one or two of the people in the group. It was called Dandans. And so we've been in touch ever since. It was just sort of like a really magical, weird connection we made. And then eventually, once we opened, they provided the artwork that's here. Oh God, I mean, since the 90s, like, when I became better known with all of these people who were active local artists, you know, like, that's when I learned about, like, some of the smaller galleries. It wasn't just about the Smithsonian and the Phillips and these big places. It was like G Fine Art and Hemphill and Transformer, and getting to know the people involved with having shows at these galleries was, I mean, they just were more, it was a very vibrant community of a lot of people, a lot of overlapping people. And it was, in terms of like DC artists, it was like, that's when I learned about people like Sam Gilliam, who's like only just now becoming the superstar that he should have always been. You know, he's like 85 and now he's getting recognition. But back then it just, I mean, I just don't know, like, especially because the Corcoran was such a big part of generating artists. And now that that's kind of completely changed, you still have like AU, but it was just different, very different in the role that it played. And I kind of feel like it's different now, but I actually don't know because all of my people are older. They're not artists. They're still creating, but a lot of them have moved. And the people who went to the Corcoran, like I guess they were, I don't know what, better known people like Ian Svenonius went there and Amy Farina, and these like, they're better known now as musicians, right now, like visual artists. But we're all older. Like, we're all still friends and we know each other, but we're all older and don't congregate in the same way and don't, you know, throw parties and shows and that kind of thing. So it's just very, very different now. Since owning a restaurant, you know, my friends can come to me and I see them mostly. But everybody's kind of gone off and done small businesses. We're very locally minded, so the people who own like Ellie's and what was Room 11 and Bad Saint, that kind of thing, like, that's one guy, Nick, and I mean there's more people involved obviously, but Nick and his wife Lizzie and stuff were all friends, and they were also people I met through the music scene and like being an actual resident of DC. And we all sort of individually decided we wanted to invest back into the city to make it an interesting, weird, cosmopolitan place instead of having kind of big box cutter restaurants come in, big shops take up space and stuff. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the city, how it's going to evolve, and if there's going to be younger artists or musicians or anybody who's going to try and take on the same responsibility. These two pieces have actually sibling, well, they're siblings, but then there's like another two sets. They're done by this artist, Bruno Ryota. He's based in Tokyo and he's graduating from the art school in Tokyo. He's traditionally trained in classical Japanese art, painting, but has obviously modernized it, and he uses a lot of animals to represent, to sort of like anthropomorphize himself. This is a Cherry Blossom Festival. And it was his idea of like how Americans hang out at the cherry blossom festivals in DC, and how Japanese people celebrate the cherry blossoms, which is the black bear, because they really destroy the grounds and party, and you can drink outside in Tokyo and stuff. And here, it's so, you know, like people go and they're like just so reverential and like quiet and walking around, and it's not, that's just his funny perception. Then there's two pieces that are carp. It's a carp, and then the other one's a catfish, and they're equally sort of like use humor and puns in it. And then he did the big piece over there. This piece he did on commission. We traveled to Niigata together, which is where my father and I are from, or my father's from there, but this is like basically the home he grew up in, our family members. There's two rivers that are really the longest rivers in Japan, run right at where the village is. And then we kind of just went touring around the area, and he picked up various sort of things he remembers about that trip and put them all in this one painting. So it's super personal, unsellable, no value except to myself. But I really like it, and I feel extremely lucky that we have a piece like this. It's super beautiful. Obviously, when guests come in and they notice it, especially little kids, they just are like completely mesmerized by it because there's so many things to look at. He does these gigantic murals typically. When we traveled and they were visiting like the whole Danan group, we went up to New York, so he did a huge New York mural that's probably 2 times this width. He's done Miami. When he travels, like this is the project that he works on. He just does like one big location piece with different themes and things like that. And his style has evolved, but it still pretty much gravitates towards like these sort of very active subjects. And then occasionally he goes back and does like a singular thing. He still falls under the umbrella of Nihonga, which is Japanese art, but it's referring to the traditional style with calligraphy or especially using gold plating, and the type of art, pigment that he uses is what's traditionally used. So this isn't watercolor. This is a type of Japanese pigment. My name is Cizuka, and this is Izakaya SEKI.